We flew to the moon. I mean, we used technology to fly to the moon. It wasn't great technology compared to today's
I don't believe that.
standards.
I'm a person who totally does not believe that we ever went to the moon, and that whole thing was completely fictional. It was all.
So you're one who subscribes to the belief that we never landed on the moon.
Right. I think we've landed probes on it, unmanned probes certainly. I believe we've even gone up there to certain heights. I do believe that, as I've said, that we've had technology and sort of spacecraft type things that can go up there. But landing on the moon in the way that was portrayed to us with these Apollo missions, absolutely not. In fact, I've done a lot of work on that in the DVD. I cover that on Atlantis, that it's impossible, certainly in the crafts that they've shown us, in the shuttle crafts with the thin walls, to pass through those radiation belts. I have information on that, and no, I'm convinced, in fact, of it. And there's also been a very long set of tapes. It's at least 4-hour show called What Happened on the Way to the Moon, which is widely available. There's also a book that came out, which is by top scientists, called Dark Moon. It's available. It only came out last year, I think, called Dark Moon. There's a book by a man who worked for NASA called Moon Gate, which goes into it. So I have a whole list of sources that are written by insiders. Again, very people in the highest echelons of the NASA project, who also now confirm. These are whistleblowers, you see, who are...
So then what did then Buzz Aldrin plant the flag on?
You see, these individuals they were imagining that they were there. A lot of these people were under either mind control or they were complicit in this act, performing the ritual. Now, once you have now presented this act to the world, you have to go through the motions,
sure.
Right? I mean, recently there was even evidence on the web that showed that some of the photography that was taken could not possibly have been on the moon from a photographic standpoint. I mean, this is a whole other subject we're getting into.
Yeah,
I'm not the expert on it, right? But
sure.
There are people who are experts on photography who know that the shadows and the alignments and, the crosshairs just couldn't be factual of the landing on the moon. It's preposterous. And if you start getting into it, you'll find that that's true. The most thing that interests me is the concept of the radiation belts that exist up there. And
you mean around the moon?
Yeah. Before that, the radiation belts of the stratosphere and the ionosphere, to penetrate those in crafts like what we have is not, in fact, possible.
Yeah, but we've filmed flying over the moon.
Hey, so we've made, we've also made the movie Stargate and Terminator 2 and all of these incredible movies that you can duplicate anything now. And to imagine that Industrial Light and Magic and Steven Spielberg are the first people to have access to that kind of technology is nonsense.
Okay, so now this is where you're possibly losing me a little bit, because so then has any manned mission outside of the Earth's atmosphere then is not a reality? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking that when I've looked into this, I think that they have a way to fly up there to a certain height, but I don't think they're able to penetrate the ionosphere and go up to the moon if they're manned. And that's why I believe there's a lot of emphasis on cloning now, on cyborgs, on virtual reality, of trying to maybe create robotoid beings that can, go and do that. I even believe that, in the paranormal movement, the idea of the little gray, that very famous image of the big bug eyes and and the very slow walking. I actually believe that those are also what I'm talking about. They're maybe semi-organic, but they're actually computeroid. I think they're controlled by people on the Earth. They're put out there for disinformation purposes. And based on the way that they react when they are seen, I believe they're remote control type beings. So I believe there's experimentation in Area 51 to try and make a kind of a hybrid, semi-organic computer type robotoid individual that might be able to go and do certain work in an advanced way on the moon. But nobody has been there. Nobody has been beyond it. Because if they had gone to the moon, they would have now gone beyond that. By now, they would have already had a manned mission to Mars, or at least outside the,
Well, so then why was it so exciting for a brief while and then just disappeared? And now you've got
Well, that backs up what I'm talking about, because they haven't done it. It was a scam. They know now that the technology, the alternative technology to prove that it was a scam is too advanced. See, the leading people that were behind the original Apollo missions, it's their work that I'm talking about that is now whistleblowing saying it didn't happen. It's fascinating. And they know now that independent laboratories, independent researchers, even guys like yourselves, can now, through photographic means, prove that it's a lie. So they don't want to reduplicate it again, because it's more easy to prove now that it's bogus. So this has been an elaborate, bogus thing. I mean, Professor Oberth, who was brought here under Operation Paperclip, along with Werner von Braun, right, who was one of the heads of the space program, the creator of SDI, was telling the Americans then, we'll never do it. His own words are saying, it cannot be done. We have tried it in Germany during the Nazis. We had all the money thrown at us in the world. We had the greatest scientists you can imagine. We didn't do it then. We can't do it now. Even if 50, 100 years went by, we cannot do it. They said, yeah, don't ever say that. It's a whole pretense thing we got going here. And assassinations have been committed. You know, I have to stop people doing this. So, yeah, when you're talking about Buzz Aldrin and the act of it, that's ritual. That's different. The ritual act of it is a performance like any actor going and doing a role. You're either mind controlled to do it or you're in on the game and you're doing it. That's a whole different issue than the factuality of whether it's actually been done or not.
But isn't it easier to say that it was a mind control thing than it is to find a way to prove that what we, in a cultural sense, believe is true isn't?
Yeah, but see, it depends what you mean by easy. Is it easier? To go up against the mainstream is hardly easy. To go against what is the consensus trance of the human race is not easy. In fact, we have to understand how these secret societies work, how they go about their business. Remember, they do plan to leave the Earth. So plan A is to send their own life forms up above. What we're talking about is they want to do it. But when they realize they can't do it, they create dummy programs to get the people to warm up to the idea, oh great, we're going to go out and discover space. Because they know that solar observatories and even your amateur homegrown, what you call, astronomer is going to be looking through his telescope, seeing all of this action. You can't hide it. I mean, you're sending stuff up. So they have to come up with an alternative plan to say, what are we going to say when people all around the world with these damn telescopes they've got, little grandma or little 16-year-old Johnny out there, amateur astronomer, is seeing our crafts go up. We got to have a couple of cover stories. We're going to say that the ones that look like UFOs are, oh, they're not us, they're coming in from outer space. My God, we might be being visited, and create that whole dynamic. Then we got to, when they see other legitimate things like the shuttle that might have been taken off, they go, we can't really hide that. Okay, let's create a fake space program and say, aren't we wonderful? Explore to the moon, get Kennedy to say some numbskull stuff, throw millions of dollars at it, and everyone will just go back to sleep, which is exactly what they've done. Now, under the cover of those stories, they can basically experiment, as they're doing now, semi-openly. The original story was a makeshift fabrication, a Hollywood concoction, actually. And they say that whistleblowing is even done in Diamonds Are Forever, the James Bond movies. We've now analyzed who these people are behind the James Bond movies, who Albert Broccoli and these people really served. Well, in a lot of these movies, and that's not the only one, there are many movies that show whistleblowing effects. In fact, in the movie Diamonds Forever, there's a scene in there where they're actually mimicking Werner von Braun, one of the people that he's meant to meet in there. If you know how to decode the movie, they're actually whistleblowing. And one of the characters, there's a head scientist working on the project there for the dark side, the Dark Secret Society, is in fact meant to be Werner von Braun. And there's this whole little dynamic going on there, showing that they're actually a simulated moonscape. And this thing, this thing is a whole facade. And Moonraker, another one of the James Bond movies, in Fifth Element, I mean, the list of Hollywood movies goes on. I'm not in the right mood right now to think of them, but I've got lists of these movies that go into detail about some of the things that are happening, with this program, the space program, that are whistleblowing.
How I've seen the movie The Fifth Element many times. How is that whistleblowing? Well,
without looking at it, I say I'm not in the right mood to go into it, but I know that movies of that ilk, especially the remakes of a lot of George Lucas stuff, the Star Wars, you see, within these movies are whistleblowing facts. They're given over to us in a certain way, because in ritual, cult ritual, you're meant to tell your enemy, tell your victim what you're doing. It's a game of chess. That's why you have checkerboards in Masonic lodges, because they're playing a game of chess with us. And in that game, in that ritual, there are certain rules that apply, even to secret societies. In fact, the secret societies are entirely ritualistically based, by the way, because that's just the way they are. And one of the rituals is that you must tell your victim or your patsy what you're actually doing. But you can tell them that in a fictional way, sort of hidden in plain sight. And that's what they do through the films like Stargate and The Fifth Element, and other films that, like what was that, Independence Day, which are huge. There's so much secret society symbolism in these films. Enemy of the State. The one I'm thinking of was with Bruce Willis, but certainly they've made Apollo movies. They've made the Comet thing, the whole fear, paranoid society bit where you're going to be hit by a comet tomorrow and all this stuff. You know, utter nonsense, because now there's no Cold War per se. The money has dropped back of funding those programs ostensibly, because remember, the lower rank and file who are not buying into this or don't know anything about the secret agenda, they'd worry and go, wait a minute, why are we still working on this crap? So you need another scare, another fear. Because what we're talking about is at the top of the pyramid there's those in the know, but everyone who works within these fields is not in the know. I do not believe that 99% of the people who work in NASA or in the Pentagon are even aware of this. They are genuine people doing a genuine day's work, thinking that they're protecting their country and, you know, whatever they're doing. That's the beauty of this orchestrated system of hierarchy that exists.
So how does it fit in that Japan and China and the United States are all currently talking about traveling to the moon in sometime within the next decade?
Because that's part of the plan. The groups that I'm talking about, these secret societies, are not national. They're transnational. They literally call themselves a trilateral commission. You know, they control all countries. They've controlled Japan for years. They control China. They control communist Russia. Communist Russia was their creation, if you get into it. So China, being a communist country, is controlled by the same bankers from New York, the same hidden hand from England. These guys have owned these countries, by the way. This whole fictional history drama that's been going on for 11,000 years is a concoction.